Thanks, everyone. Firstly, thanks, Luke, for giving me this slot. Everyone's got a cup of tea and had some biscuits, and everyone seems quite happy. Thank you. Let's get the important stuff out of the way first. Who's Kate Shipp? Yay! We will talk. Who's got Gavin, Holland? We will talk. Thank you very much. Sorry for cheating. I didn't get a chance to mingle during the break, so I wanted to get that out of the way. I've learned a lot so far. I don't know about you. I think it's been really good, so kudos to Luke for setting this up. One thing that sticks in my mind, I've got to tell my brand team never to have pictures with kids in capes. They're doing a brand project at the moment. Stay clear. So that's one thing to take on. So, Capital One. This will be a bit of a kind of expose, a bit of a warts and all session, so excuse me. This is me. A bit of an expose about me first. I've been in the industry well over 20 years now, working for quite a few big corporates, Cap One, Orange, BBC. I live in Manchester. I have the world's longest commute from Manchester to Nottingham, which is slowly killing me, but it's fine. The job's worth it. What am I? Head of various different job titles. They seem to get longer every single year. They'll soon stretch out here, further off the page. I'm a father to two amazing daughters. I'm the world's oldest DJ, apparently, much to the embarrassment of my daughters. And I showed this to one of my team the other day, and they said, "Why are you showing a picture of some nuclear waste ground here?" I said, "It's not. It's where I was born. I was born in Scunthorpe." So I fought my way up from the streets to get where I am, so quite proud of myself for that. So what we're going to talk about, I'll give you a little bit of an intro about Capital One. You might not know what we're trying to achieve there. You might know us from credit cards, yes. But that's just one thing that we do, and I'll try and expand on that a little bit in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And I'll talk about inclusive design process, which chimes a lot with some of the other talks that we heard. Phil Morton in particular was talking about kind of everyone's doing testing. It's not unusual now for big companies to do fairly large-scale usability testing. Everyone's doing it. It's kind of a so what these days. What I'd like to talk about is the balance that you really must achieve between your engaging customers and getting user input, but also making the most of your internal audience as well and involving those people in design-orientated processes, because it's terrifying for them sometimes. They do perceive that design sometimes sits in a little black box kind of over there. So I want to show you a few things about how we've tried to do that and things that have genuinely worked. So I'll just get past the boring stuff first. About us, so Capital One. Have I drifted too far away? There we go. We're quite large, actually. We've got a team of 41 people now, even more people recently with the addition of people like Sam, who's joined us today, visual designer. We're expanding at a fair rate of knots. We're spread across 2 locations, so Nottingham and London. This is us on one of our rebel-rousing nights out. We like to get out and socialise quite a lot. And the really good thing about having a reasonably large team is that you've got different people in different disciplines, and it allows you to work at depth in your specific area. So we've got, this is a real luxury for me. Having worked in agencies where you've had to do everything yourself and you're there till midnight, it can get very tiring and you spread yourself far too thinly. So what I find great about Capital One is we've invested in teams of people across lots of different areas, but we work really well together in a single team. So we have a content team, a visual design team, a research team of 5 people, a UX team, of course, which I kind of manage in Nottingham, and then a design strategist team as well, which is fairly unique to me. I'd never worked with a design strategy team before, so that it gives us the opportunity to work at a lot of depth on projects, which is great. And we've been voted recently as one of the best places to work in the UK, which is quite an accolade via Glassdoor. Which is a great thing. And some of the things that make it really good from a design perspective, we've got a great environment. We've got a beautiful office in Shoreditch. We've taken over 2 floors in White Collar Factory. We've got one of the most hipster things going. We've got a running track on the roof, a beautiful kind of roof terrace. I just thought I'd throw this one in. I've never been on it, but they assure me it's amazing. Come on, click. The one thing that they invest in really well at Capital One is we own an agency called Adaptive Path in the US as well. who have a lot of the kind of most renowned UXers and researchers and futurists. So it gives us amazing access to a source of continual learning as well. So we get a lot of access to those guys over there. So it's from someone who's been in the industry around about 20 years, I kind of thought I knew it all, but in the past kind of 2 years since I've been at Capital One, I've learned an incredible amount. So there is hope. Old dogs can learn new tricks, so this particular old dog has. And cross-location knowledge sharing as well. The team over in the US is much larger. There are around about 400 designers in the US, whereas we've only got 41. So there's a lot of knowledge sharing goes on. We have a regular Thursday session with the American teams called What's Up Thursday. There's a lot of whooping goes on from the American side, and we're trying to embrace the whoop, and we're getting there. But it's that unbridled positivity is something that we actually really love, and the American teams are great in that respect. And because of the size of brand that we are in the US, we get a chance to get a lot of industry experts in there. This is Jared Spool, the most unflattering picture of Jared Spool that there ever has been, but we get access to a lot of people like Jared who come along and share their thoughts on what we're trying to achieve, so it's quite lucky in that regard. I won't talk too much about what Capital One products we're doing, but I think what we're trying to really genuinely do is understand our customers much better and make small increments of change in terms of the services that we're providing for people. Our mission is change banking for good, which is very grandiose. But I think this made me really happy. It makes me well up every time I see this. But this is just one of the things that we did last year, which was very small, but actually makes a real difference to some of the real people that we're trying to target. In particular, the more vulnerable aspects of the customer base that we have around partially sighted and people who have low numeracy. And so what we're trying to do is, via amazing digital things and making things really accessible, trying to really make a difference in the banking sector. I'll show this. I'm praying this is going to work. There should be some sound. Should we start again? Fail. Sorry guys, give me a second. One moment. It'll be worth it, I guarantee it.
Take the jack in and out. That probably does the thing.
Be independent of how to do things.
He's the guy. Thank you. Yeah, round of applause.
I like to be independent. I like to do things myself rather than getting someone to do things for me. My name is Atika and I am 25 years old. I lost my sight when I was 14 years old. When I lost my sight, I thought I would never be able to do things myself. But once I settled down a little, I learned about the technologies, about the computers. Since then, I became more confident. I have a talking scale, talking measuring jug. Don't forget Mom's birthday present. A broke note taker, note detector. I can access many things on my smartphone. It tells you whatever is saying on the screen. It will read everything to me.
As a blind or partially sighted person, you want to do everything that everyone else wants to do. We wanted to create a proposition to put accessibility on companies' agendas, which we eventually called R&IV Approved.
What started out as a desire to meet a fundamental customer need has actually become a real passion for everyone involved. For someone coming to our website, even with sight loss or hearing loss or some other physical disability that makes it hard to use websites, the experience should be seamless, easy to use.
Every time we're creating a new functionality or a new page, we're listening through the page, make sure that what you can see is getting conveyed through the screen reader.
Making sure that all the copy on the page is picked up, that the colour contrast levels on the page meet the minimum requirements. What's been really good about Beyond IB accreditation is that we're using people who are blind, who are partially sighted, to actually verify that the changes we made work for real people. So it's a great one.
Companies like Capital One trying to make it easier for everyone to access the site is incredible.
It's hugely important because it begins to tell a story around how the world can be more accessible and connected.
Thank you. Thank God we got that working. It breaks me up every time I see that. But it goes to show the importance of trying to involve users and different types of users in your design process. And we were really proud of that. And we were probably first FinTech to actually get RNIB accreditation last year, which we're really proud of. So we want to do more of that type of thing. So how do we relate that back to our struggle? So what am I trying to get across today? I'll show you this. We've got a distance thing with the clicker. But this is the struggle that I have in Capital One, and ever since I've been there for the last 2 years. And it's a positive challenge. There are two things here then. So within a large lumbering organisation, you've got a multitude of different internal stakeholders. Particularly from a FinTech perspective, you've got regulatory and compliance issues that you have to get over. So you have to be really inclusive with your internal people. And I sat down with somebody and we mapped them all out. And this is just a few of them. So you have to get closer to people like brand, legal, compliance, development teams, tech, product managers, but also balancing that with your customers. As you've seen there are a huge variance in numeracy, literacy, and the ways they can engage with your websites as well. So what we've really, really tried to achieve at Capital One is a really good balance between these two in terms of developing a design process that's really inclusive of these two types of different, what we call customers, internal customers, and your external customers. And we did a survey. We thought we were skipping along really well from a design perspective, but we were brave enough to ask people all around the company what actually they thought about design within Capital One. It was about 1.5 years ago. And it wasn't all positive, you know, it was a tough pill to take actually. People told us that design it seemed to occur in a black box kind of over there, and there was mystique around it. There was people saying that they took part in amazing ideation sessions, but then were dropped throughout the rest of the process, and there were peaks and troughs of emotion. And then we got people saying, oh, it was wonderful to be involved in bits of design process, but they were really tense about it because they'd never done it before. So we were getting people from the call centres who had never engaged with design, and we were thinking, oh, this is a great thing that they're involved, but they were actually really tense about it. So what we wanted to do is respond to this by developing a design process which really responded to this and really opened up how to do design within a large company. So it's that sweet spot between customer empathy and engagement and collaboration with your internal people, particularly within a FinTech, that really, really matters. So I'll quickly show you 5 things that have genuinely worked for us within that entire design process. I won't show you the full design process because it's quite dull actually, but I'll show you the 5 things within that process that we've actually found to work incredibly well. So start as you mean to go on. If you're committed to being collaborative as part of your process, start from the very first moment. So we have something called a project canvas, which is actually very simple in its creation. So any piece of intent within Capital One, it doesn't start with a single person in any particular room. We always try and get as diverse group of people together to talk about that piece of intent as we possibly can. And we develop this kind of lean UX canvas to do that, to facilitate that. So from an intent perspective, where we've got an idea or something we want to explore, we start to generate ideas around that and generate those initial bits of requirements together in the room. So this will be a designer, a developer, a product manager, even people from call centres. We get together and discuss it. And we try and fill as much of this out as we can, either on a huge wall or together we sketch it on one of the A3 pads that we've got printed that are around the office. And it's very simple. Bit of a delay. Here we go. As you can see, this is it. And it was purposely not meant to look kind of design orientated. It was meant to feel like something that normal people that aren't designers could engage with. So it's a little bit corporate looking, but it's kind of meant to be like that. So what are the main constituent parts of this? So the main segments. So basically it's split into what is this and what are we trying to achieve? Who needs to be involved? What is the opportunity and what does that look like? What are our initial assumptions around channel, timings and limitations? And who are we targeting? So a little bit of information about the segmentation of the customer. And what happens? We don't always get this fully filled out, of course, but this really helps us. Where we have the gaps in that canvas, it helps us to define what we do from a definition or discovery perspective. So it helps the researchers go off and try and answer some of these questions. So it really helps us identify what we have or what we don't have. And by the way, these aren't, I can set, if you'd like a copy of these templates, I'm more than happy to send them out. They're not commercially sensitive, so that's not a problem. Another great thing that we do is we're really critical of our own user journeys, and we do a lot of group heuristic review, which is a fancy word for just getting in front of a flow and talking about it with each other. But we tend to do this from a customer perspective. So we developed a couple of heuristic principles, only 4, I wouldn't overcomplicate it, which mix information that you have about customer profiles, but also general usability guidelines as well. I'll show you what that means. So the 4 that we devised, let's go back. So they're quite simple. So by heuristics, we wanted to take a look at a user journey from the customer's perspective. So these are the 4 that we use, and you can see they're pretty simple. So we look at a flow, so perhaps somebody signing up for an app or doing something on the website, and we run it through these 4 things with the power of the group, all the time making notes and putting post-it notes on the wall. And what this does, it allows us to prioritize and see where those big issues are from a customer perspective. So we'll ask ourselves questions. So do I understand what you say? This is all thinking from a customer perspective. Do I know what you do? Do I know what to do? Do I know what's happening? And do I know what to do when I get stuck? The first one there is particularly important because of our customer base actually at Capital One is what we call high street, the high street areas. So typically, we can't overcomplicate things. We have to make things reasonably simple. So seeing things, applying this kind of lens onto a user journey has proved really, really successful. And it gets kind of non-design or UX orientated people thinking in customer terms. And I like this picture because they're actually smiling. People are enjoying this session, which is great. We want people engaged in sessions and for them to enjoy them and really get engaged. Call listening. Our office in Nottingham, we actually have a team of 450 call handlers there, and we make tremendous use of them as well. As part of our onboarding process, we insist on all members of the design team doing a period of call listening and actually listening to customers. And we've developed a piece of software that allows us, any incoming call, we can tag it with metadata against 80 different types of meta information. So we have a team on our team called the Customer Experience Team. So whenever we have a specific issue, so we want to innovate around app sign-up or card activation, we can task, this is Karen on our team, we can task her to do a deep dive on card activation, and she can pull in 20 or 30 specific calls that we can listen to in isolation. So what I would say is if you've got access to a customer support team or call agents, make sure you're embedding that into your onboarding processes, but devise a system where you can actually listen to these calls based on certain challenges. Ideation workshops. This is probably the biggest one for us. Don't waste people's time before an ideation session. In a big fintech, people get really angry if you pull them into meetings unnecessarily. So we're really conscious of this. So we put a lot of time before a collaborative idea session to work up a hypothesis with that team. So we go into an ideation session with a really clear idea of what we're trying to achieve in that ideation session, but also so we don't go too wide. I think in the bad old days, we used to have idea sessions and come up with 10,000 ideas, and virtually 90% of them weren't realistic. So we want to make sure we go into an ideation session with a really clear view, actually, of what we're trying to prove or achieve. And this is just a typical kind of thing that we do in terms of hypotheses generation. So we'll do this generally with the actual team itself. You can see this happening. not so happy. It's a bit boring, this session, to be honest, but it's really important. Include a diverse selection of people as well, and this is really important. What we've changed is from doing an idea sessions with just designers or product managers. We use a ridiculously wide group of people to help us generate ideas, and you can see their call agents as well. So we do use call agents, so anyone we can get our hands on who actually engages with the customers in the idea generation process, we'll have them. And it's not all men, by the way. There were other people over here. I need to stress that from a diversity perspective. There are women over this side. Putting people at ease, we found is a really, really important thing, especially if they're not from a design background. So really pay attention to this if you're running big collaborative processes in big fintechs. So set people homework. So homework, before they arrive at the collaboration session, enables them to start to speak about things that are quite passionate to them. So an onboarding process in an app, this is one we run recently. We had people look at the wide range of kind of onboarding processes, and not just in fintech either. We had people bring in the KFC one, Pizza Hut, all kinds of ways that people are onboarded onto an app. So we encourage people to bring along a little bit of homework before a collaboration session, because it gets them to open up in non-design terms about some of their passions and things that they've done. This is quite a fun one we do as well. So anyone who's non-design orientated, when you try and ask them to sketch anything, they get really tense, and they don't want to get stuck into things. We always run this. It's called 30 circles. So we give them a little sheet. We ask them to be really playful with it. We ask them to turn as many of the blank circles into recognizable objects as they possibly can within a couple of minutes. And you just get crazy things coming back. But that's the whole point. It's getting people to be comfortable with sketching and being free with their ideas. But you always get a cheater, don't you? This guy. There's always one spoiler. He got his emojis out, and he just copied his emojis. But I guess that shows initiative, right? So kudos to him. And I'm sure all the UXers in the room use this technique, but by far it's the most successful one that we've used. It's called Crazy Eights. It's not that crazy. It's not crazy at all. You bisect a sheet into 8, fold it into 8 segments, and within a certain time frame based on your hypotheses or what you're trying to focus on, you get each member to sketch an idea, a little bit of copy, anything they want into one of those 8 segments. But the focus is on generating a volume of ideas at this stage with your people. So you want a really big diversity of ideas. You present it all back, and then you just dot task it together. So you're not going to do everything in a session, but at least you're getting everyone's ideas. You're getting some degree of prioritization on that. But we find this a really free, exciting, interesting way of getting ideas from people. I'll not go on about this too much, because as Phil said earlier, everyone's doing usability testing. It's tacit now. Everyone's doing it. And you would expect that of a big corporation and a big fintech. But I think what we do really well, I think at Cat One, is we've invested in a huge lab, all the mod cons, as you would expect of a decent sized kind of fintech. But here, what you don't see here, we can get upwards of 15 people into our facility. And what we do really well is try and get people in. We advertise when these sessions are happening. And as a way of promoting research and user-centered thinking, we get as many people into the lab as possible to watch the sessions, regardless of what they're about. Fill it with snacks, food, anything you can do. But as a way of changing people's mindsets within a big company, showing them the testing process and how it actually works has been really transformative. So if you do have a lab, expand it a bit, get some more chairs in there and get as many people as you can in there watching testing, because it's completely transformed the perception of UX and design within Capital One. So in summary, pretty simple really. Find opportunities to design with people. Don't see your design process as just design. Particularly within a fintech, it has to encompass such a wide range of people. But put people at ease in terms of engaging with these sessions, because they'll feel happier, more comfortable, and engage better with you. Particularly people who the call center people, for example, they've never done this before, so help them. And basically design with people, not specifically for people. So include your customers, but also as much as you can your internal audience. Sorry for the slow clicker. I don't know what's happening. There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you.